to Active Rain University, everybody. My name is Bob Stewart. Today we're going to talk about 7 ways to generate leads from your listings. You can follow along. That's not the right URL. That should be facebook.com/AR Bob Stewart. They did not create a new URL structure just for me, by the way. There I am. There's the proper URL structure, facebook.com/AR Bob Stewart. If you'd like to follow along, maybe you miss out on some of these webinars occasionally. You'd like to be able to see the recordings when you're bored at home at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night or something. I mean, that doesn't happen to anybody out there, right? You guys are just working until 1 in the morning and then going to bed and getting up and going back to work. All right, why are you going to spend the next 60 minutes with me? Well, the idea here today was, you know, you've always heard in the industry, you got to list to last. And I think one of the things that I've come to learn from some of the great agents that I've had the chance to associate with over the last 10 years is it's not just like they go out and take the listing and all of a sudden that's what keeps them in business, right? It's not necessarily just the sign in the yard. These great listing agents understand, and a lot of them have built teams around this concept. I mean, they're doing volumes of transactions that I think are far beyond what a lot of us would even conceive being possible. But one of the things that these folks realize is taking the listing is just the first step. And beyond that, then, they really turn themselves into the mindset of, okay, how can I use this listing to generate additional prospects or additional leads for my business? So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, you know, there's lots of ways you could be doing this. There's probably many, many more than the 7 or 8 that we'll talk about here today. The first thing we need to understand is what is the purpose of your listing? And I say this, I mean, obviously the purpose of your listing is to get it sold for the most money in the shortest amount of time. And I think that, you know, if we were to sit down and take a poll and say, okay, what's our #1 objective when we take a listing, I would have to believe that all of us are going to say, look, we want to get our client the most money, and we want to do that in the shortest amount of time. But let's put that aside, okay? We can all say that that is absolutely the purpose of our listing. But from the perspective of our business, the purpose of our listing becomes leads. Duh. And again, I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek because that's not the primary purpose. But from the perspective of enhancing our business, we need to be thinking about how can we utilize our listing to generate more leads. And as you look at agents that are able to build these teams and they're able to go out and generate leads with their listings, they really have a different mindset, I think. And hopefully I can try to impress upon you just the little subtleties in how you present your marketing or how you put your listing on Facebook. Or there's just some different ways maybe that you can think about things so that leads starts to become a focus from the marketing perspective of how you market your listing. So one of the things that's going to be kind of a recurring theme throughout here is this idea of a landing page, and this idea that if I'm going out and marketing my property, I'd like to find some way that if I get that thing in front of somebody that I can maybe trade details about the property or something in exchange for the ability to be able to contact them or connect with them. Okay, the landing page we see right here on the screen is from listings to leads. Guys, there are all kinds of companies that do this thing. I don't get paid by these guys. They're not an advertiser with us. I just think they have a really easy-to-use system that allows you to really create some great landing pages kind of designed for different things. Again, they're not a sponsor. They didn't ask to be on this webinar. In fact, I reached out to them and said, hey, guys, can you get me a screenshot or put together a couple of pages for me for this webinar, and I'm going to use them as some examples. There's other companies that do this, okay? Listings to leads happens to be the one that you're going to see a little bit in here today. But the idea that we're not just going to put our listing out there and say, hey, look at it, because a couple of years ago in a class that I was sitting in, listening to an agent who was really aggressive using Craigslist to generate leads. And one of the things that that person said that's really stuck with me is when consumers are online looking for listings, or sometimes even not looking for listings, right? Like Facebook would be a great example of a place where I don't think consumers are going to look for listings, but they might be willing to take a look at your listing if you do the right things. But they said, that person said, the first thing consumers are trying to do is disqualify your listing. And what we generally do when we market our listing is we give them all of the information so that they can disqualify it. Okay, so if it's a, if the house is 550,000, it's 4 bedrooms, it's so many square feet, we give them all this information before we ever attempt to get their contact information, which allows them to just disqualify the listing. So what ends up happening is we're only getting inquiries when somebody's actually interested in that listing, not just interested in a listing in general, if that makes sense. And there's absolutely a difference there, right? Because they might not be interested in our listing, but that doesn't mean they're not interested in another listing that we might have access to. Okay, so this landing page is going to be a recurring theme as we dive in here. So the very first kind of thing that I look at, and this has been something that I've started to see personally recently, and been looking at buying a house. And so I'm one of those people, and this is kind of funny because obviously I look online, okay, but it's not outside the, this happens on a Saturday. We will absolutely get in the car and go out and drive around, and what we're doing at that point is driving past signs, okay? And we're, I'm 37 years old, but I'm still the type, I will get out and grab a flyer if there's a flyer there. My girlfriend will get out and grab a flyer if there's a flyer there. The problem is the majority of the time, there's not a flyer there. Okay, so what are you doing with your signs? Okay, the smartleadcapture.com, again, not a company that is paying to be here. Just they're one of the companies out there, and there's, you can do something like text, lead capture, real estate, something like that in Google. You're going to find a couple of different companies. Okay, but the idea is that you have some way when somebody drives by your sign to actually capture their information, because when I walk up and take the flyer out, nobody knows that was me. And in fact, what we generally are doing with that flyer is exactly what that person who talked about Craigslist was saying. We grab that flyer out of there, and the information's always on the flyer, okay? But we're generally looking to disqualify this house. Well, that's not in our price range. Oh, that's not big enough, or it doesn't have enough bedrooms, right? But once I've grabbed the flyer, disqualified the listing, and kept on moving, that listing agent has no way to access me. They don't know that I'm the person out front who picked up the flyer. Okay, when you do something like this, when you've got these smart lead capture tools, so whether it be text for information, or you've got the pre-recorded phone number or message that you can leave, or somebody can call in. QR codes, those were kind of a big deal. But my issue with QR codes is you can't capture somebody's phone number the way you can with like a text-to-lead solution, or a solution where somebody would call in and get a message. But I would, and I do this. If there's a text message, and I know what's going to happen, right? I'm in the industry. I know that when I pull that down, they at least have the ability to connect with me at that point. And believe me, I get a number of phone calls on my phone from real estate agents, and I've gotten better at saying, look, I'm not interested. Okay, take me off your list or whatever. But I'm getting close, and at some point, I'm going to be interested, right? Now I happen to have an agent, but that's okay. How many of you guys are doing this? Just check in for me. I want to kind of get a sense. I didn't set any polls up for this one. I just want to get a sense. Drivebytech.com, John says, is another one. Drivebytech.com is one that he uses. He said it's cheap, it's awesome, it's easy to use. Hank says, yeah, I'm doing the 24/7 phone line. Good. So there's a few people on here that already realize this. But look, like I said, the last couple of Saturdays we've been out driving around, and I'll tell you what, most people are not doing this. Most agents are not taking advantage of their sign as a way to generate leads for their real estate business. In fact, most agents fall somewhere in that first little deal. Never run out of flyers. I can't tell you how many, and we don't know who took these flyers, right? It could have just been that little punk at the end of the street who doesn't want his buddies and their parents to move, right? Like, we don't know what's happening to these flyers, and we don't know who's taking them. So it's smart if we can figure out who was interested and we can get their contact info somehow, right? Not groundbreaking, but man, I tell you how many times I see this not being applied, where really, when you have somebody out driving around, stopping and grabbing flyers, wanting more information as they're sitting in front of a property, I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff. If I had a text like that set up and I was able to get leads quick, I know they're in front of the property at that time. I'm coming back with a text message like, hey, you guys are out in front of the property. Would you like to take a look at it? Right? I'm trying to get in front of them. I'm trying to set up a meeting. So I hope that you guys start doing something with your sign. Like, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities. Essentially, every flyer that goes out of that box is an opportunity that you may have had to connect with a prospect. Number 2, we got 7 of these things, okay? Use the listing as a reason to get out and meet the neighbors. So in the last couple of months anyway, we've done a few different webinars on farming. And the very first one we did with a gentleman named Greg McDaniel, he really dove into the idea of getting out in a community for some reason and meeting the neighbors and even what to say. Now, before this class started, I think, and if it wasn't before, it will be right after, we sent you guys a PDF that's kind of my description of this webinar in a written form, okay, including every link that you're going to see in here. And Carrie's sending you out the links as we go through the slides here, but those will also be in the PDF. And I give a little script in there that basically comes from what Brad talked about in this Dirt on Farming webinar. But the idea is I have something worth leaving with them when I go out. And I would encourage you that that's something you have worth leaving includes some type of a call to action. So it might be something like this, right? You go out, you've got a listing that's going up in a neighborhood. You go out, you knock on the door, and you say something like, you know, hey, how you doing? My name is Bob Stewart with XYZ Realty. The Johnsons down the street have just recently listed their house, and I'm not sure if you've seen that yet, but I'm out in the neighborhood just letting all the neighbors know and wondering if you guys might know anybody that's talked recently about moving into the neighborhood. And then shut up, right? And they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to really rack their brain to try to think of somebody because you're standing in front of them and they want to help you. People just generally want to help other people. Or they're going to think about it for a second. They're going to say, no, sorry, we don't know anybody. At that point, if they say yes, right, I mean, you're gold. If they say no, fine, then it becomes something like, all right, hey, great, I appreciate you thinking for me. I want to just leave this postcard with you. It'll give you a few details about the house the Johnsons have listed down the street. It also has a place on there for you guys to go online if you'd like to see what your house might sell for. That's it, boom, and I'm gone. And by leaving them something that allows them to go to a place on our website or a landing page that we have from listings to leads and give us their address and their contact information so that we could do a CMA for them or something like that, right? We're the listing agent. We're the one in their neighborhood right now that's got a house listed. And they might be getting mail from other people. They might have been online at some point, but if you're mailing into that neighborhood, right, maybe you've sent your just listed postcards, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But if you've been in the neighborhood and now you're at their door, right, that's going to solidify you a little bit in their head. It solidifies you as that expert, the guy in the neighborhood. You are the one with the listings, right? But I think you need to have something worth leaving. If you're just out there knocking on doors, you're probably not going to generate as many leads as if you give them something, right? They're going to be wondering, what did the Johnsons' house sell for? Wait, what do they have it listed for? Well, our house is a little bit smaller. I wonder what it might be worth. So leaving something with them that drives them back to somewhere where they can ask for information. Maybe they could search for properties, or they could ask to get a CMA on their house. Right? We want to leave something as we're out in these neighborhoods that gives them a path to get back to us, because right there as we stand in front of them, they might not be interested in engaging with us. host an open house. I mean, this one's pretty obvious, right? I would imagine most of you guys, it's kind of, open houses are a funny thing because I think it's one of those things where in the beginning of your career, right, every listing you had an open house. And as you get a little bit further along and maybe you realize like there's been open houses where nobody showed up, or you put all this effort into it and 3 people showed up, right, and it just wasn't worth it. It becomes this mindset of, here, I'll let, Johnny New Agent in the office host my open house for me. We've done a webinar. It was a crowdsourcing webinar. There's the URL for it. All kinds of ideas about how to get people to your open house. I don't think that's generally the idea here. Obviously, we want to market the open house. The more people we get there, the better chance we're going to have of capturing leads or turning these folks into prospects as they walk in the door. I think the most important part of this becomes, consider something like either Open House Pro or ListingsToLeads.com. They offer this type of a thing. Basically, this idea that people sign in, right? Again, not groundbreaking, but I absolutely know that not all agents are out there getting their folks to sign in, right? They feel like, oh, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to be that person. Like, I don't care what it takes for you to get them to sign in. Make something up, right? If it's, oh, hey, my brokerage requires that everybody who attend our open houses sign in, right? The homeowners have asked, because they've got this beautiful house and people are going to be tramping through it, they've just asked us to make sure we get everybody signed in so we kind of have a list of who was here. Okay, this particular one is one from Listings to Leads. I've heard a lot of great feedback about Open House Pro, which is an app for like an iPad. The Listings to Leads one, it could be on your iPad, it could be on your computer, on your laptop. Okay, you can change the questions in here. Right? This one asks a few basic things. Right? You want to know how the property was presented. You want to, you're asking them, would they like to be notified of price changes, right? I mean, you're just giving them a reason to give you their contact info. Right? These things work a little bit better than the old school sheet and paper because you don't have to then, try to decipher their cursive. You don't have to worry about going back after the open house and spending the half hour to add these people to your database. Right? These people are going to be captured on the back end of a system like Open House Pro or Listings to Leads. All right, number 4, leverage your listings on the portals. So if you read, I think the PDF went out before. If you read the PDF, I basically start with, yep, those portals, like the Trulias, the Zillows, the Realtor.coms, and I think in our industry there's this love-hate relationship with these guys, okay? That I don't find too many people that kind of sit in the middle and just go, I don't really have an opinion on these folks. Like, you either love them or you hate them, but here's the reality. They're here to stay. Okay, these are heavily funded companies, right? They have market caps in the billions of dollars. These folks are not going anywhere, and they are getting massive amounts of traffic. Like between Trulia and Zillow, they got like 120 million unique visitors. And I had somebody the other day say, yeah, but there's only 300 and some odd million people in the United States, and this doesn't really make sense. And look, I get it. Not all 120 million of these folks are coming to these sites to buy a house, right? I mean, we only sell 5 million houses in the United States in an entire year. They're coming to look at, when some celebrity sells their house, and they're coming to look at their neighbors, see how much their neighbor's house is worth. But they are absolutely coming here to find listings because they're getting ready to buy something, right? I mean, these sites show up in the search engine rankings for just about every and any type of a search that you would do as it relates to wanting to own a home in some area. Okay, so we need to figure out, how do we leverage our listings on these portals? And there's quite a few free opportunities for you to do this. So I'm just going to talk about a couple with Zillow and a couple with Trulia. The first thing you'd want to do, I think, on Zillow is claim your listings. Okay, and there's a link there of how to claim your listings. Okay, again, it's in the PDF. Carrie's going to send it out to you right now. But what this does on Zillow is it allows you to show up on your listings for free next to the property. Now, if you're just a free member on Zillow, you're going to show up next to a couple of other agents, right? But you're clearly going to be listed as the listing agent, and it gives people a chance literally for free. I mean, if they land on that page and they want to talk to the listing agent, they have a chance to do that. The second thing I would suggest on Zillow is to update your sales history. And the reason for that is when they're looking at that property and you're showing up as the listing agent, Zillow will actually show your recent sales. I think it's in the last 12 months. And it's a number that they kind of slap next to your name and up there by the fact that you're the listing agent. But it shows your recent activity. So get in there and update that, because if your recent activity shows 0 or 1, and there's a couple other agents on the page and they're showing that they've done 15 deals and 25 deals, like, that's going to potentially make a consumer think, oh, well, maybe I'll go with this guy that looks like he's a little bit more active. Or maybe they just say, hey, I want to talk to the listing agent. In that case, if you've claimed your listings, that'll be you. So the same thing happens with Trulia. You can get in there and claim your listings. Okay? One of the things that I would encourage you to do with really any of these portals is just confirm the data's correct. Okay? I think there's this misnomer in the industry that these sites like collecting bad data because it gives them extra listings to have on the market. I promise you, at least in Trulia's case, that is not the deal. Right? If Trulia, if we could get the clean listing data, we would absolutely remove, and we've got all sorts of programs in place to try to get the cleanest listing data. But as an agent, you have to realize, look, consumers are going to these sites whether the data is good or bad. Okay, they're going to these sites because they rank well in the search engines. These sites are starting to build brand awareness in the consumer's mind, right? They all have big marketing budgets that they're working off of this year. So we got to make sure that data is correct. Another great thing you can do on Trulia as you claim your listings is you can market your open house. And I had a lady who wrote a blog post on ActiveRate, it was last week, I think, and the title was Trulia Almost Ruined My Open House. And what had happened was the data for her open house wasn't right on Trulia, and it had the wrong time. It was like 3 hours prior to when her open house actually was. And what happened is 3 people showed up at that open house based on that data having been on Trulia, and she wasn't there. Okay, the homeowner was there, and lucky enough, the homeowner was understanding, and they actually let the people see the house. I mean, they called the agent, and I think she kind of scrambled to get there as the homeowner was letting these folks look in the pre-open house. What I took from that, though, was, wow, people are finding these open houses on places like Trulia, right? And one of the people, I ended up talking to the agent, and she told me, she said, you know, one of these people had like an alert set up where they were getting sent notifications from Trulia about open houses that were in their area. So use it as a way to market other things you might be doing, right? Like an open house, like we've already talked about. One of the things that, this is the little listing that you see right here. I mean, that thing has had 51,000 property views. It's probably time to drop the price, maybe, I don't know. But one of the things that, this is Katrina Benton's listing, and I use her as an example because she's always trying to figure out how can I kind of get a leg up somewhere. And one of the things that she's done, let's see if we could take a look at this here. One of the things that she's done that I really liked is she went into the listing. Now, this listing ended up on Trulia by some kind of a feed. Right? She's a Keller Williams agent, so it could be that Keller Williams as a brokerage is giving Trulia a feed of their listings. But once she claims the listing, she can go in and manipulate the content on here. And one of the things that she does with all of her listings is she goes in and manipulates the description to point them back to her website. Now, she can't track this because it's not a clickable link, right? It's something that somebody would have to copy and paste. Here's another one of her listings. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, she does it in all of her listings on the portals, right? She's just realized, look, I'm going to leverage the traffic that these guys are getting, and maybe I'm going to get some traffic back to my website. So on something like, on something like this listing we see here, that over the time that it's been on the Trulia has had 51,000 views, it absolutely makes sense for her to get her website in there, right? It also makes sense for her to confirm the data is correct, to market that thing as an open house if it's in there, absolutely to claim her listing. And this is going to be the same or similar on Zillow as to what you see on Trulia, but if you're not, if you don't have a featured listing, or you're not like a Trulia Pro, you're going to see something like this where she kind of shows up as the listing agent, right? When she decides to feature her listing, and Trulia Pro allows you to feature 1 or 2 or something of your listings, I think it's up to 10, actually, then you become the only agent that shows up on your listing. So we have an offer from Trulia. It's only for Active Rain members. In fact, like, their sales team wants to sell this thing. They're not allowing them to do it. It's $10 a month for the first 6 months to try out Trulia Pro. What ends up happening then is you get like ad-free featured listings, right? So instead of 3 other agents showing up where you're marked as the listing agent, just you show up, okay? Get your listing seen first. So in some of the search results pages, so if somebody was going and looking for a home between $300,000 and $400,000 in Anchorage, if Katrina's listing was, met that criteria of what they'd search for, and she had designated it as one of her featured listings as a part of her Trulia Pro, that listing would then show up a little bit higher, sometimes in that first position on the search results page. She's getting leads from this thing. When we can see, she lets me log in as her stuff. She's got leads in here, right? Leads are coming in. You can actually listen to the phone calls, which is kind of fascinating, right? It tracks any messages that are coming through to you. I mean, it becomes very easy for you to understand, am I getting an ROI on the $10 this month that I spent on Trulia Pro, right? Are my listings getting good exposure? Am I getting contacts from people? So leverage those portals, okay? I don't care if you hate them. They're not going away, and if you don't go out and claim your listings, then somebody else is going to show up next to your stuff. All right, number 5. Is anybody shocked? Seriously, is anybody shocked this one's on the list? But every single day on Active Rain, I see people blogging about their listings in a fashion that's just not right. I mean, I don't know if there's a wrong way. I guess doing it is better than not doing it. But there's actually a way you can do this that allows you to generate leads better than just like posting a flyer, for instance. Because again, when you post a flyer, you're just giving everything away. So in our blogging blueprint series, we have, and in the PDF, I actually give you the link to the listings one, but we have a blueprint about how to blog about your listing. And some of the things that we talk about in there is doing things like maybe not giving away the farm, right? Maybe we only show them a couple of images and then we try to drive them back to our website to see the other images, right? Maybe we even do something like, we don't put the price in there. And we say, check out today's price on our website. Right? But we talk all about that in that how to blog your listings blogging blueprint. Another just great opportunity or a time to blog about either the subdivision, or if it's a condo that you're listing, maybe the complex that thing is in. And if you guys have listened to me talk about blogging, you know that till I'm blue in the face, I'm talking about writing about subdivisions and condo complexes. Because those types of blog posts generate traffic. And if we do the right things then and get linking back to our site in the right ways, we can generate leads, right? But when you take a listing, it's a great time to kind of look back in your blog and say, okay, have I written about the subdivision that this listing's in? Have I written about the condo complex that this listing's in? Is this a unique type of property where I could maybe write a blog post about the uniqueness of this property? Right? Maybe it's a a condo in Seattle with a 2-car garage, with 2 parking spaces. Like, those don't come along very often, right? Most of the condos in Seattle have 1 parking space, especially downtown, right? So maybe my blog post about my listing becomes condo for sale in Seattle with 2 parking spaces, right? Again, in our Blogging Blueprint series, we just talk all about, how can you utilize your listing to generate leads. And it's not that easy and simple, hey, let's create a flyer somewhere off on vFlyer or something and then grab the HTML code and slap it in there. Because again, what we do in that scenario is we just give them a reason to disqualify us. We don't give them any reason to want to trade their contact information for something they might find valuable, additional pictures of the home, market reports about the neighborhood, something, right? All right, number 6, use your listing to engage current prospects. And I get it, this isn't generating new leads with our listings, but if you've been buying leads, generating your own leads, or you have some kind of a database that's full of prospects, many of those are probably going to be people that at some point you've just stopped trying to follow up with, right? These people just won't respond. So Katrina uses Market Leader Professional as her CRM, and she's got a little tool inside of that when she gets a new listing, she can decide which of her prospects she'd like to send that listing out to. It's called her listing alerts. And she can just go in there and say, look, I got a new property to sell on the market, or maybe it's like a price reduced. Like, this is actually, and again, I'm set up on property alerts for agents from all across the country because I just like to see what people are doing. This is a property alert I received from her recently, and this happened to be on like she had reduced the price on this listing. So she sent that out, and she was engaging people inside of her database that maybe had looked at a similar type of a listing, or maybe she was sending it to just people who hadn't responded to anything in the last 3 months. She's just using this as a way, and it actually tracks. You can see, like, view more details, request more info, or schedule a showing. When you send a blast out like this, let's say it went out to 500 people, we can track on the back, like, how many of them requested more info, how many of them actually clicked that schedule a showing button. And every time she sends one of these, she gets a couple of people. I mean, she has a large database of past leads that she's generated. But every single time, she gets 1 or 2 people to raise their hand, right? And it's because she took advantage of that listing, right? She took the opportunity to engage those, what essentially otherwise may be dead prospects. Now, she works her prospects in a little bit different fashion, right? She's more of the buy or die mentality. Like, she's going to work you until you either tell her to just go away, you buy something, with someone else, or you die. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing this, but after my research of this week, I'm absolutely convinced that a lot of us are just doing it wrong. And again, look, I get why people put the price on here, right? But it becomes this, you're giving them a reason to disqualify even going after more information about your property. This particular card has one of the components that, I mean, guys, I looked at hundreds of real estate agent postcards. I did Google image search. I mean, I was all over the place looking at real estate agent postcards in the last week. And it was very, very difficult for me to find a postcard that had a clean call to action on it. This one happens to be one of them. See the virtual tour. You have to have some kind of a call to action on your postcard. Okay? People are not going to grab that postcard, flip it over, see your phone number, and call you. Right? I mean, maybe if this is the exact right house for them, but the odds are stacked against that. Okay? But if this is in a neighborhood of the house that you have listed, use this as an opportunity to see if they want to get a value on their home, right? Johnson's just listed their house for $570,000. Want to see what your house is worth? bobstewart.com/sell. Right? I mean, Just List and Just Sold postcards are great from a branding perspective, right? We can enhance that branding opportunity if we get out in the neighborhood and actually knock on the doors of a few of these people that we sent this thing to. We can enhance our chances at actually generating leads from these things by making sure we have a call to action. In a lot of cases, a great call to action could just be something like, find out what your house could sell for, you know, and then a URL or website address for them to go to. CoreFact, CoreFact.com. CoreFact has a great postcard program that does some really cool stuff with calls to action and lead capture, right? They'll send out postcards. Let's say you send out 500 postcards. Each postcard will have like a URL and then a unique code for that homeowner. And so if they go to that website and then type in their code, it's going to pull their property up and give them a, you know, an estimated valuation on their property. But now you on the back end will know, you know, Joe and Mary Francis at 21 West Main, they just went on this website and looked for their property information. Right? You've created a lead, somebody that might be interested in knowing what their home is worth because they're thinking about selling in the future. So just really, 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 I beg you, if you're spending the money already, find some reason or some way for them to get back to your website, right? The way would be by putting the link on there somehow. It's got to be a short and clean one like this one is. And then offer them something. All right, so I've got, that was 7, and that's what we called for here, but let's do one extra one here. As literally like last night, as I was sitting on my iPad, thumbing down through my Facebook feed, I came across a property listing, like in my news feed, and I thought, well, that's interesting. This is exactly what I'm talking about tomorrow, and I've been looking for one of these for a while, but I haven't been able to find one kind of in the wild, right? Because it would have had to have been somebody that was targeting me as I sat in my house in San Jose. So I clicked on the link. And first off, the property was about 20 miles away, which, you know, I don't know. It didn't have really any reason that it seemed like it was targeted to me, other than the fact that I happen to live in some, you know, circle big enough to be encompassed by what this person was marketing to. So then I started to think there's a lot of demographic information that Facebook gives us to be able to advertise. So I bet you there's some better ways that this person could have done this. And so I got in there and started playing around with it. And I absolutely think there's some really cool targeting that you can do inside of Facebook to market your listing. And one of the things about this is it becomes more powerful if you could potentially identify some niche of people that might be interested in your particular property. So like I did this example ad here of a condo that's situated on like the 15th green of the Riverbend golf course, right? This isn't actually my listing, but if I had a listing of a condo on this golf course, this might be the type of ad that I would run, right? Now, this ad is ridiculous if I just run it to everybody, because most people aren't going to give a rip if they live on the 15th hole at Riverbend, but who might give a rip would be somebody that's interested in golf. And so what I can do, and you see my audience definition over there, I'm going to show you guys this in just a second on another example that I think might be even more powerful. But I'm able to go in there and say, look, Riverbend's in Kent. So I'm going to say, look, Kent, maybe 25 miles around Kent. I'm looking for people that are older than 21 who have an interest in golf, whose income is basically over $100,000. And what Facebook shows me is that means my ad is going to get circulated through to about 18,800 people, as opposed to like the 2.6 million that would be in there if I just went Kent plus 25 miles, which is essentially what I'm pretty sure the agent whose ad got served up to me yesterday was doing. Now I think and as I clicked on that agent's ad, I was then taken to a page on their website that gave me every single piece of information I needed to disqualify that listing. And no reason for me to give them my contact info. Listings to Leads has these just listed landing pages that you can create that give you an opportunity to try to get their contact info. This person's not getting the info about this awesome condo on the 15th hole at Riverbend unless they give me their email address, right? I don't have to ask for their phone number. I could make that a non-required field. I could take that field completely off, right? I'm going to get more. If I just had 2 fields, name and email, I'm going to get more people to fill it out than if I ask for a phone number. But I can control this, right? That picture in the background could be a picture of my listing. Right? I can control what information I want to give them in just this little synopsis to get them to dive in further. Right? I could put the current price on there if I wanted. Maybe you're one of those people that says, I just don't feel good about keeping the price from people. I hate doing that. Fine. Keep the pictures from them. Right? Make them give you the name and email for the pictures. When they hit submit on this, then there's a second page on Listings to Leads to get built that give them all the information about the listing. But at that point, we've got their contact info. We can call them. We can email them. We can follow up with them. We can send them our virtual tour. We can do whatever we've got in our bag to try to convert people interested in our property into a solid, qualified prospect. But we can never do that if we just send them back to the listing page on our website that gives them all the information to disqualify the listing and to jump back onto Facebook and keep keeping up to date with my friends. So as I was playing with this last night, so in Seattle, and I'm not in Seattle right now, I'm in San Jose, but this would absolutely apply here in San Jose because, I mean, within 20 miles of me is Apple and Google and Yahoo and LinkedIn and Twitter and all these places, right? But we have lots of those places in Seattle too, and I would imagine you have places somewhere in your market that people work. And so if you have a listing near where somebody works, I think this is a great strategy to use Facebook advertising to market your listing to people that work at a certain place. So like Microsoft in Seattle is a great example. So I've come in here and I've created an ad that's going to link back to my just listed page, right, from Listings to Leads. I'm going to put my image in here of my condo that I'm selling that's near Microsoft, right? In order to run a Facebook ad, I need to have a page that just comes from a business page. So I'm going to pick my Bob Stewart business page, and all that does is when the ad shows up, that's who it comes from. Okay? Then I can get in here. I can write the headline. That becomes this little portion. I can write the text under here. I'm sorry, the text is what shows up here. This little area down here, which is actually hidden in the beginning. But when we show the advanced, then we can, this is this little area in here. All of this becomes clickable, right? A link that leads them back here where they can become a lead of mine. Because again, if I ran this same ad on Facebook and just drove them back to my website, I'm not going to get leads. Okay? It's going to be a fail. But this is where it really starts to get cool. So, okay, how many people, so I'm marketing this property near Microsoft. 5 minutes from Microsoft. We have thousands and thousands of people in the Pacific Northwest that work at Microsoft's campus in Redmond that drive a long ways to get there. That make enough money to not have to drive a long ways to get to work every day. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say Redmond. And I'm going to leave this open. Now, I could come in here and change the radius on this. In fact, you know what? I might want to do Redmond plus 50 miles. Because somebody that's in that 26 to 50 mile radius from Redmond, they're driving an hour to work every day if they work at the Redmond Microsoft campus. Okay? So I want to definitely hit those people too. And you'll see right now that there's 2.8 million people on Facebook within 50 miles of Redmond. That's way too many to run my ad to, right? And none of these people work for Microsoft, or a small percentage of them do. But what I can do is I can come in here and just say, Microsoft. And now guess what? Now my ad's just going to show to the 40,000 people within 50 miles of Redmond that work for Microsoft. Maybe my property's, you know, $700,000 property, and I realize, like, it's going to have to be somebody that's worked at Microsoft for a little bit, right? I could come in here and say, okay, let's go down to demographics. And there's all sorts of stuff that we can figure out in here, but let's do financial. Maybe let's do income. Okay, so we can choose our income level. So let's do 100 to 125, and let's do over 125. So we're basically getting everybody over 100,000. Right? We just went from whatever it was 40,000, I think, down to 7,600 people. So now we have 7,600 people within 50 miles of Redmond who make over $100,000 who are going to get served up our ad. Right? These are all people that have a pretty good reason to want to live closer to their job. They make enough money to be able to do it. Traffic in Seattle is horrible. Like, think about the ways you can use, especially this demographics, right? Maybe you've got something that's like in a first-time home buyer's price range, right? I could come down here. Let's get rid of these, income. I could come down here and say, how about home ownership as a renter? So I want to find the people that work for Microsoft within 50 miles of Redmond that rent. There's 6,800 of them. I don't think right now that there's anywhere for a real estate agent to market their business as effectively as using targeted Facebook ads. There's just not. I've done a video recently about how to do this to generate seller leads, and the first person that came back and did exactly what I said and then brought a report to me generated like 92 leads for $80. Those numbers are unheard of. You're probably not going to get as many leads with your listing as you would with trying to target seller leads. I just don't think. But if you target these things really specifically, you can absolutely generate leads through Facebook with your listings. But the key really becomes this landing page, because when somebody sees my ad, if they click through and the page I land them on is just the listing and all the information and all the pictures and everything, the only reason they're going to give me their contact info is if they literally want to see the house right now. Again, I said landing pages would be a theme throughout here, but when you use something like this, fine. Look, if 60 people click on this and only 5 give me their contact info, I got 5 new prospects. Versus the other way, if 60 people clicked on it, I may have not gotten any prospects, right? Because I gave them all the information, all the pictures, all the open house details, everything, right? Maybe I'd catch them at my open house. I mean, I hope I would. Okay. Deep breath. What kind of questions do you guys have? So I'm going to go in here and look at your questions. As we're doing that, I'll just leave that offer up there from Trulia. Kimberly wants to put me on the spot. She says, does Bob think the listings to leads landing pages are better than Market Leader? All right, hopefully we turn the recordings off because I don't want to get myself in trouble here, right? Market Leader and Active Brain are all a part of the Trulia family of websites. Yes. I think from the perspective of what they are designed for, I think they're better than using a Market Leader landing page. As an overall system, no, I don't think it's better. Like they don't do the same things. Market Leader's system is a full IDX, a full CRM on the back end. They talk to each other. You get a lot of data about the people that are on your website. From an IDX perspective, Market Leader is definitely better. Just on landing pages, though, yeah, listings to leads, I mean, they allow you to customize your landing pages, right? They allow you to do things like You know, just put out the information you want to put out and then take the rest of that information and put it behind a wall so they have to give you their email address. Like Market Leader doesn't have something that's as clean from a landing page perspective as Listings to Leads. So thanks, now I lose my job. Okay, let's see. Somebody asks, is there a PDF on using Facebook to generate listing leads? There's not a PDF, but let me real quick show you where to find that. There's a video that you can watch. And so if you go to my blog, so activerain.trulia.com/blogs/ARBob, if you scroll back here just a little bit, there's a blog on here on generating seller leads using Facebook advertising. And there's a video in here where I walk you through step-by-step how to do this. And look, I'm not making this stuff up. Like if this person made it up, shame on them, but they didn't. So this is the report, right? So they did their ad. They ran it for a couple of weeks. They put like a $5 a day budget on it. The ad ran for 2 weeks, basically. The total cost of the ad was just under $70 or $80, and they got 92 actionable leads. Guys, that is ridiculous. I mean, it just is. If you, I'm almost speechless. I mean, I knew this worked, and if you read the blog, you'll kind of get the background on where this idea came from, and I give credit to the proper people. But wow. So yeah, Van Allen, that's where you would find that. Yes. So Scott Pierce from Listings to Leads, he's the founder of Listings to Leads. He's on the call, and he basically said, yeah, Listings to Leads and Market Leader, it's just different. It's not better. I agree with him. I mean, they both do different things, and but from a landing page perspective, Listings to Leads is really doing some cool stuff. So Richard says, can you show an example of the targeted to Microsoft? I hope you asked that question, Richard, kind of before I showed this example, but this would be, you know, something like I would do. And, you know, I mean, from back in the day when we did a lot of Google pay-per-click advertising to our real estate website when we owned our own brokerage. And one of the things that we did a lot of is just testing what wording to use, what images to use. So, you know, if I was going to run an ad like this, like I'd run this one, but I'd also run a couple of different ones, right? I'd have them probably all set up on pretty low budgets, $5 a day or something. And I would just test and see, you know, which one's getting a higher click-through rate. I might use slightly different landing pages back here for some of the different ads. And so I could see what kind of conversion rates I'm getting versus the click-throughs that I'm getting. And you know, this stuff kind of becomes fun. Like, I promise you that the person that spent the $80 and generated 92 leads, like, that just got them thinking, what other things can I do? What small tweaks can I make in here? How can I target this a little bit different? Like, it really gets your mind turning, especially as you start to see these leads come in. But the example in terms of this stuff, and guys, there is all sorts of stuff here in the demographics, right? And so you can really target the copy or the text in your ad or the images in your ad to what you want, right? I mean, we can look at people in like different industries. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff in here in this demographics to really allow us to chop this thing up into really small bits so that our ads are getting in front of the right people. Frank says, isn't the Listings to Leads landing into our Market Leader? I know when I talked to Scott about this before, maybe he can clarify, they were working on that process. I'm not sure that it's set up yet, but at some point here in the very near future, yes. Market Leader has, I forget what we call it, but basically like where you can port your leads in from other sources, so your Trulia leads can port into your Market Leader CRM, or your Zillow leads can port into your Market Leader CRM. Listings to Leads is getting something like that set up with Market Leader. I don't think it's there just yet. Yeah, Scott says not yet, but we hope at some point soon. So right now it becomes kind of this lead on the back end of listings to leads system, and then you would have to manually port it over. Man, lots of great questions in here. So we're getting close to the top of the hour. If you have to go, I totally get it. I'll stay around and answer a few more questions. Hank says, I do video tours. Any idea on capitalizing on these? Hank, I mean, the first idea that pops into my head anyway is to get into the portals and give people a chance to find that virtual tour, right? So something like what Katrina's doing here, go in there and amend your Trulia listing to point people to your virtual tour, okay? And what you might even do is use like a listings to leads landing page where when they land there, they have to give you the name and email address, and then when they hit submit, they're then forwarded to the video tour, if that makes sense, right? Because we could send them to the video tour, but if there's no kind of calls to action in there that are really going to get them to turn into a lead, then maybe we want to put some kind of a wall in front of it, right? Real simple, just your name and your email. It wouldn't surprise me if Listings to Leads has, Scott's probably typing furiously, they probably have something like that. Vern says, a web consultant recommended we do a landing page. It is basically a duplicate effort of our main website. Seems this may have been a mistake. Look, like, when the very first time Katrina Benton ever went out to generate seller leads on Facebook, she started by using this sell tab on her market leader site. Okay, here's the problem with this page versus like a real simple page like I use it in my example. And I have the link to that landing page. It's in the video, but it's something like this, right? Except for it basically says, find out what your home is worth. It's got a picture of like the city that I'm doing the ad for, okay? And it's just got like 2 fields, or actually it's 1 field. It's your address. And once somebody gives you the address, then they're a lead, right? Then the second, when they hit submit, then the second one asks for their name, email, and phone number. But what this one does is it asks for too much on 1 page. It's just too much. And so, Vern, you know, sometimes when you do a landing page, there might be just subtle tweaks to it. Like it might be that you just, instead of asking for home phone, and like you just ask for name and email, right? Or instead of asking for address in like 5 fields, because that just looks more daunting than asking for an address like in 1 field. So there's small tweaks, and they may have, you know, suggested those tweaks for very valid reasons, right? Conversion rate would be that reason. I mean, Michael says, what is your take on the California Department of Real Estate requiring basically your ID or your broker number or something like that on web pages or at the first point of contact? Like, okay, I mean, sucks, but you got to do what you got to do in terms of the law, right? These things will, you know, you could put like this little field right here. It could be something at the end where you could put, you know, DRE number, blah, 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 right? I mean, you got to do what you got to do in terms of adhering to your state laws and that sort of thing. Yeah, Carol says, if I'm not a Zillow Pro or a Trulia Pro, can I still set up an account so I can link to my listings for free? Yeah, both of those things that claiming your listings on both Zillow and Trulia is something you can do with just a free account. Okay, go in, again, in the PDF, we've got links to both Zillow and Trulia in terms of how to claim your listings. They've got really easy to understand videos that walk you through how to do it with screenshots and all that stuff. But absolutely, those are both free types of things that you can do. Here's the link to my blog is activebrain.trulia.com/blog/arbob. And then you can scroll down on that page and find that video. Sally says, I don't have a listing and I need some place to send the Facebook lead to capture contact info. Can I set up a landing page without a listing? Yeah. Now it wouldn't be a just listed landing page like this one, right? It would be, and I wasn't expecting to talk as much about like the seller type landing pages. But yeah, maybe Scott, if you're still there, could you send me a link to what, there it is. I'm not sure what this one is actually. That's the virtual tour stuff he's talking about, which I would imagine is behind some kind of a landing page. Scott, let me see if here. Yeah, show me the seller landing page, Scott. Could you? There it is. Okay, awesome. So Sally, this is something like what you would use if you didn't have a listing. It would be something like this, right? You'd be going after seller leads. You'd run an ad in Long Beach, right? Maybe you'd run it and you do it in this case, right? If I'm running an ad like that, I don't choose renters. I'm going to choose homeowners, right? So I'm going to come in here and say home ownership. What happened? Home ownership, and we want homeowners, right? Again, in my video, I break down kind of how to do this. So this would be the 50 people who work for Microsoft who are homeowners. You know, I could do if I was just running my ad to Redmond, I would come in here and say just Redmond and give me just homeowners in Redmond. That's going to give me the 13,800 people that Facebook have been able to identify as a homeowner in Redmond. Yeah, but this is what that kind of landing page looks like. Real simple, right? And now you can really see the difference between this as a landing page and this as a landing page, right? This one is a heck of a lot cleaner. It's going to get people to take action. I promise your conversions will be a lot higher. Like if you get 60 people to click to this page versus 60 to click to here, you're going to get a lot more submissions on this one. It's just the facts, man. All right. Okay, I'll tell you what. Okay, so sorry, everybody's asking, what is this? What is the? It's listings to. Oh. I spelled it wrong. Listings to, maybe it's lead. Let's just look it up. Listings to leads. There they are. Listings to leads. I'm sorry. Listings2leads.com. Looks like they even have a 14-day free trial. I swear, even though Scott's on this webinar and I've talked a lot about their company, I'm just doing this because I think they have a good product. This almost feels like a commercial for them, but it's not. Okay, I'll tell you what. The tons of questions here. We're past the hour. If you guys have more questions, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to go to our Facebook page at some point today, ask your question. I'll jump in there and try to answer as many as I can. I'll be keeping an eye on it throughout the day as I get ready to head down to Florida in a fun little regional Century 21 event this weekend. So if you're down in Florida and you're with Century 21, maybe I'll see you in Marco Island on Sunday and Monday. You guys have an awesome rest of your week. I hope you picked up a few little tidbits in here today. We'll see you guys all again real soon at Active Rain University. On behalf of Carrie and Alicia, who are always behind the scenes, my name is Bob Stewart. Bye-bye, everybody.